Very nice to meet you all. I'm extremely excited. My name is Alon Chitayat, but over the web I'm known as Ani Mishmish. So everything I do, this is my studio. We do a lot of experiential design, so things for public spaces. But everything I do, either if it's on Instagram or Vimeo, anything is around Ani Mishmish. And I want to ask you a simple question, and then I need some help. So the question is, how are you feeling? But I want you to answer that with a body expression. So, because I'm really excited, and I need your help just with the energy. So what I want you to do is, I want you to do one body gesture. It could be a face or anything with the body, just expressing how you feel emotionally. So ready? And I'm going to do a quick video just because I do it everywhere I go. And because if I'm embarrassing myself on stage, why not all of you embarrass yourself as well? So ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Oh, very nice. Thank you so much. And the reason why I ask, how are you feeling, and for the body gesture, is because emotional communication is something really different, right? If we're quoting Albert Mehrabian and his research, the actual words, what I'm saying right now on stage, from the perspective of how you see me from an emotional perspective, there is only 7% value in what I'm actually saying, the actual words. Then the tone of voice, right? The way I'm expressing my words is 38%. And then body language is actually 55%, which is so much, right? We look at people, and sometimes, I used to live in New York, so people in New York sometimes they're passive-aggressive. I don't know how it is in Georgia. So you would step on someone's leg, and they would go, "That's okay." So clearly the words are, it's okay, but it's definitely not okay. You can see it from the face, from the body gesture. So if we're talking about design and interfaces, we're spending a lot of time in UX writing, right, the words, so much time in voice interfaces, but then motion design is actually the body language of your interface. And what I want to do today is I want to talk about the value, the immense value of motion design. I'll give you some background of where I'm coming from. I've been doing motion design for interfaces for over a decade, and then designing motion for visual effects even more. I used to work at Google, launched this product which is called Jamboard. It's a collaborative whiteboard, so people could connect. It was a physical one and a digital one. I used to be the UX lead for growth at Waze. Are you using Waze in Georgia, which is a navigation app, or Google Maps? Which one do you prefer?
Yes, we use
up
it.
until not too long ago, I used to be the design lead for Lottie Lab, which is a startup, an international startup, which created an editor over the web, and you could, instead of going to After Effects in order to animate your motion designs, you could actually do it now over the web and export Lottie animations. If you don't know what Lottie animations are, I'm going to explain that in a bit. Aside from being a designer, I also love teaching. So this is probably what I love the most. I've been teaching motion and interaction design at NYU. I'm a faculty member at Shankar and used to teach at Pratt University. And what I want to talk about today is just some predictions. I thought about the word trends. I don't like it so much because I feel like trends are only talking about right now. So I'm going to do some predictions, and then if I'm totally wrong, I'm totally wrong in a year, and you can't blame me for that. So I think motion can make waiting less painful. So if you've generated any kind of images right now with AI, you know how much time it takes, right? It takes so much time to create images. And if you look at the body gesture, right? You know this one? Try to remember where you've seen it in UI. Anyone has a vague memory? Let me show you. Right, look at the top, right? So look at the rhythm of this, and someone actually designed it. And this is where we could look at human body gesture, and translate those into motion, into UI motion. There is something which is called perceived latency. If you ordered food lately and you've been waiting, waiting is probably one of the most horrible moments for friction moments when you're ordering food, as an example. And a way to solve that waiting moment is what we called, or perceived latency, is by creating some kind of motion feedback so you actually know what's going on. So in this case, if you're ordering food, it's not that the food is actually being prepared, so we're giving you the feeling that something is actually happening behind the scene even when you're waiting. Another thing that I've created for Waze Carpool, Waze used to have a carpool service already closed. While waiting for your carpool or ordering carpool, sometimes it would take like 20 or 30 seconds, which in a perspective of user experience, it's a lot. So in this case, just by creating some animation, the feeling of latency, the feeling of waiting was reduced. So another big value. Creative loaders are fantastic. I want to give a big shout out to Chris Gannon, who's the motion designer that I really like. The next prediction is anything around orientation. I want to give a first example of a product that I worked on, Jamboard. I've mentioned that before. In this case, while doing UX research, we discovered that people, while communicating with other people, because it's a remote whiteboard, they couldn't say on which page they were. So the first thing that I did as a motion designer was giving them the feeling of which page is it. The second thing was that plus thing. People used to create pages, empty pages, just by swiping without knowing that they were creating empty pages. So again, motion design could solve that feeling of spatial orientation, especially if your interface is not only one screen, but it's a whole space. Let's look at another example. And this is something which is going to happen more and more, right? AR is going to step into our lives. We're seeing more and more glasses, AR glasses. So in this case, Google Maps already turns not only spatial orientation using motion, but also turns it into a whole game, which I really like. The next prediction is anything around automotives. I used to work or consult in the last year for an electric car company. What we're seeing more and more is the fact that cars, switching into either autonomous cars or to electric cars, the whole space of the car is going to turn into more of an entertainment space with this whole mixed reality thing happening. So in this case, this is BMW showing a prediction of how cars are going to be like. And again, motion is playing a really important role in giving you feedback because you're not touching physical buttons. Ford Mustang, again, look at the infotainment. This is no longer just, how fast am I riding? By now, it's giving you an indication of much, much more information. So AI was discussed already. I want to talk about the motion side of AI. I'm assuming you already know this one, right? This is Google Assistant. And I love this example because only by animating 4 dots, you're getting so much information about the state of the AI assistant in this case. Is it talking? Is it waiting? Again, a way to create a facial expression for your interface. So we're going to see more and more of these. I have an Alexa at home. She has a really hard time. It's almost like having someone who doesn't understand you 90% of the time. But I think that voice interfaces are going to grow bigger and bigger, and we're seeing it with ChatGPT Voice, Whisper. And the feedback that we'll need from those interfaces is going to be really important. Stuff like this, where AI assistants are going to be physical objects like robots. Again, in this case, the motion is going to be the actual face. So we're discussing about the dots as a representation of the face, in this case, an actual face. Without the motion, this whole AI robot is nothing, right? It's just an empty object. So the whole life of this object is the motion. And we've seen stuff like this, right? The next generation of the phones, Rabbit, a new company trying to reinvent the phone as an AI object. Again, everything around motion in this interface, because the whole interaction is going to be a voice interaction, is going to need a lot of motion inside, and I'm assuming that motion is going to play a crucial role. Or stuff like this. This is Tony Bubble, another great animator, chatbots, right? So you're chatting with an AI. In this case, it's you're trying to explain which apartment you're looking for, and I think the delightful moment of instead of just texting, having some kind of animation to accompany the feedback has a huge value for the product and the user. The next prediction is anywhere around stickers or badges, which seems almost obvious, but I want to talk about two different examples in particular. So the first one is in ways we were trying to reduce the amount of reports. And one way to do it was to gamify the whole report system. So if you've ever created a report and you got those points over there, I'm the guy who animated it. And the value that we saw by A/B testing before and after, giving you some kind of feedback, some kind of reward for your contribution, lifted the amount of rewards by a high percentage. These are just really cute examples by Will Fraun. Stickers, animated stickers, and in this case, if these were not animated, the value of these would be different. They tell a story, which I think is fantastic. And if we're talking about product value and stickers, Discord and Nitro, you're actually paying more to have a product that provides animated stickers. So I think, again, if we're looking at motion as something that brings a lot of value to the product, this is a good example, even just by, I want to pay for really cool emojis. My favorite example of all is Duolingo. Duolingo has been doing, so first of all, the design is beautiful and the animation is just fantastic. But what I really love is the fact that Duolingo acquired an animation studio. So in 2022, they acquired Gunner, which is a Detroit-based studio. So they're investing a lot, or betting on animation in order to produce more value to the product. And I think, again, from an emotional perspective, I love Duolingo, which is not something that you can say often about products. All the animation was done with Rive, and I'm going to talk about it in a second. Onboarding, so we already know stuff like this, which is just explaining with motion complex stuff. How do I change a SIM, right? Or how do I set up my phone? I actually want to show you an example where onboarding and using motion for onboarding failed for me. We were A/B testing at Waze how to enable Google Assistant on Waze, and part of it was just giving you this pop-up that would convince you to use it. And we were A/B testing with animation and without animation. And when I got the results, as a motion designer, I was surprised because the one without the animation performed better. And the reason for that, I think, in some cases, if you do too much motion or too much stuff, you're actually creating more friction. So again, something just to think about and to remember. Animated UI elements, has been around for a lot of time by now, but I think, again, those stages where you don't need to show multiple screens, you could actually update or feedback the user on a specific button through motion, and giving them the different stages of where they are within the journey is interesting. Animated icons, and themes. So again, with Lottie, and we're going to talk about it in a second, you could actually theme some of your UI. So imagine this is Halloween, and you have a like button, but now that like button performs as a like button for Halloween. This is something that I'm assuming that we're going to see more and more. So UX motion tools, and which one should you learn? So the first choice would probably be Lottie. And just as a background, Lottie is an open source motion tool or exporter that was first called Body Moving, and then Airbnb invested a lot in order to make it even better. The differences between a Lottie animation and an MP4, as an example, is the same as a PNG or an SVG. So it's pixels versus vectors, and vectors are usually, if you open the file, it's actually just a long JSON, so it's code. The benefits of it is first of all, size. So if we're comparing a GIF to a Lottie, size are much, much smaller. It could be presented on any screen with, you could scale it up to a huge screen, a small screen, without changing the original file. It's vector. And you could actually influence it in real time. This is an example from Opal. You could download a whole set of Lottie animations, and you could see that I'm actually changing the color in real time, changing the stroke width in real time. So this could all be used with Lottie animations. Two major players that I want to talk about. The first one is Lottie Files, which I'm assuming a lot of you know already. You could download animations from there, but also now you could edit animations. The second one is Lottie Lab, a really cool editor, and I'm going to teach that tool in my workshop during the boot camp in a few days, so you're invited. And we're going to see a lot of AI-generated motion, right? Because to be honest, animating takes a lot of time. So this is how you look when you start animating, right? And then when you're done, this is something like this, right? Animation takes so much time, it's impossible. So I'm assuming that we're going to see, again, Musho, like fast designs. You know, we're going to see more and more animations which are produced by AI. So this is an example of an article that I wrote where I managed to produce Lottie animation using ChatGPT with the understanding of gravity as an example of a bowling ball or a ping pong ball. Rive did a nasty trick, and they took Hernan Torrisi, who invented the whole Lottie format, and hired him. So now Rive is like fighting back. Rive is for pro animators. It's harder to learn, but I think the value is incredible. So if you're a pro animator, go for that. You have bones, structures, physics, much more than just Lottie editors, stuff like this. So I encourage you to go and just search those tools and try them, or just join the bootcamp workshop where I'm going to teach you how to animate your own Lottie animations. So that's it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you all. Feel free to reach out during the break or through LinkedIn, and it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation. And enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye.